Maya. God, what the hell happened? Someone call an ambulance. She's not breathing. And Logan. Logan's unconscious. The word shot through the nursery like a bullet. Blake Harrington, still in his tailored Navy suit from the board meeting he'd left early, stood frozen for a split second before sprinting across the polished oak floor. A half-used bottle of baby formula rolled beneath the crib. And on the floor, Maya Williams, his housemaid, lay sprawled, unconscious, her arm curled protectively around his son. 2-year-old Logan, who whimpered weakly, drenched in sweat. But what Blake didn't know was this. Only minutes earlier, Logan had suffered a violent febrile seizure. Maya had heard the strange choking cry while scrubbing the laundry sink downstairs. She dropped a towel in her hand and raced up the forbidden stairs without thinking. In the nursery, she'd found Logan convulsing, tiny limbs stiff, his eyes fluttering and unfocused, his skin burned to the touch. "Sweetheart, stay with me," she had whispered, grabbing the damp cloth from the shelf, cradling his burning body against hers. Her hand shook as she cooled his forehead, stroked his cheeks, whispered his name over and over like a prayer. The nannies were gone. No one answered her calls. And then, something cold. A sharp sting at the back of her neck. A scent. Chemical. Bitter. Artificial. She'd barely turned her head before everything blurred. Her limbs went limp. Her chest tightened. The nursery lights spun above her like carousel bulbs. As darkness swallowed her, the last thing she heard was Logan's tiny cry against her collarbone. Now, as Blake knelt beside them, he didn't see any of that. "Logan! No. Breathe, son. Stay with me." Blake's voice cracked. He turned to Maya, his chest heaving. She didn't move. A beat later, Gilda Crane, the housekeeper, ran into the room, feigning panic, hand over her chest. "Oh my Lord," she gasped. "Mr. Harrington, I was just downstairs getting fresh diapers. I came back and found them like this. She must have done something. That bottle, it's open. And there's medicine on the floor." Blake's eyes darted to the nursery table. A small bottle lay uncapped, its contents spilled across the floor. His heart pounded faster. But something wasn't right. Logan's cries slowed. His limbs trembled. Blake held him tighter, shouting over his shoulder, "Call an ambulance now." As Gilda disappeared, Blake shifted Maya slightly, searching for a pulse. It was there, faint, sluggish. Her skin was clammy, her breathing shallow. What the hell happened? He looked around again. Logan had clearly been sick. A small bowl of water sat beside the crib, along with a towel soaked in lukewarm water. There was even a thermometer on the floor still blinking. Maya had been cooling him down. But then, how had she passed out? Blake didn't notice the faint scent of something sharp lingering in the air, like alcohol mixed with citrus. He didn't see the faint red mark on Maya's wrist where a small injection had bruised the skin too clean to be accidental. What he saw was a terrifying scene. His son nearly seizing and the maid unconscious on the nursery floor with no explanation. The paramedics arrived swiftly. One crouched by Logan, another by Maya. "Baby's running a dangerously high fever," one EMT murmured. "We need to stabilize his temperature. It could have led to a seizure." Blake's fists clenched. He looked back at Maya as the other medic checked her vitals. "Severe dehydration," the medic said. "Possibly drugged. Maybe passed out from exhaustion or low blood sugar, but we'll need tests." "Drugged?" Blake echoed sharply. "She smells like sedatives," the EMT added quietly. "Could be accidental. Could be administered. We won't know until the talk screen comes back." That was the moment it snapped. Blake stood, fists clenched at his sides. His jaw tightened as he turned toward Maya's unconscious figure, fury boiling inside. "What did you do to him?" he shouted, his voice laced with fury and panic. Maya blinked, struggling to sit up. He had a fever. He started shaking. Don't lie to me. He moved so suddenly she flinched. In his rage, his hand jerked forward. Not a slap, not a punch. But as he reached to yank her up by the arm, his grip was too hard. Her head knocked sharply against the wooden bedpost behind her, with a thud. She gasped in pain. Don't pretend to care, he growled. I should have listened when they said to keep you away. The medics pulled him back. Sir, please. She's still unconscious. She needs medical attention. Maya closed her eyes, pain radiating from the side of her head. But what hurt more was his voice. She had admired him from afar. This grieving father, this broken man trying to raise his son alone. And now, he stood over her, treating her like nothing. Gilda reappeared, arms crossed, eyes narrowed. I warned you about her, she whispered to Blake. People like her, they pretend, always looking for sympathy. You saw the bottle. The ambulance lights flashed red and blue outside. Maya was lifted onto a stretcher, her limp hand brushing against Logan's blanket. The boy cried softly. Maya turned her face toward the sound, eyes wet. I didn't hurt him, she whispered. Blake didn't respond. At the hospital, Maya was placed in a separate ward under observation. Logan was stabilized, fever brought down with fluids and medication. Hours later, the pediatrician met Blake in the hallway. Your son's going to be okay, she said softly. But I have to ask, who's been caring for him lately? Blake blinked. The nanny. Gilda oversees it. The doctor hesitated. He shows signs of emotional withdrawal. No bonding, little response to stimuli. That doesn't happen overnight. Blake said nothing. He was still thinking of the way Logan had clung to Maya's shirt, even while he was unconscious. He had looked for her, chosen her. The next morning, Maya awoke to find herself alone in the sterile hospital room. Her wrist was bruised, her head still pounding. She turned slowly, wincing at the soreness in her neck. A thin bandage wrapped around her temple where she'd hit the bedpost the night before. Her wrist was bruised, her pride shattered. She reached for the call button, not because she needed help, but just to prove she could still move her hand. The nurse entered a minute later, a middle-aged woman with a kind but tired face. You're awake, she said gently, checking the IV. How are you feeling? Maya hesitated. I'm still trying to figure out if this is real. The nurse gave her a sympathetic glance. You passed out from exhaustion. That, and well, whatever someone injected you with. Maya blinked. Injected? The nurse nodded. Small puncture in your wrist. Trace amounts of a sedative were found in your system. Nothing over the counter. Maya's heart dropped. Someone had drugged her. That meant this wasn't just an accident. Someone wanted her out of that room. Do you know who? Maya whispered. The nurse was hesitant. They didn't say, but the police weren't called. Mr. Harrington's private team handled everything. Of course they did. Maya bit the inside of her cheek, keeping the tears back. Your clothes were sent back to your agency, the nurse added, and someone from the Harrington estate dropped off your final check. It's already processed. Already? Asked Maya, startled. The nurse paused. I think they want this to be over. The words landed hard, like a verdict. Later that morning, Maya was discharged with little ceremony. No one from the Harrington household came. No driver, no explanation, just silence. She walked out of the hospital in the same clothes she'd worn 2 nights before, now wrinkled and still faintly smelling of baby powder and antiseptic. The taxi she flagged down took her back to her tiny studio apartment on the edge of Queens. The heater groaned when she stepped inside, and the single-pane windows rattled in the wind. Her mother, Lorraine, was sitting in the kitchen knitting a faded scarf with fingers that trembled slightly. Her eyes lit up when she saw Maya, but that smile faltered as she took in her daughter's injuries. "Oh, baby, what did they do to you?" Maya didn't answer. She sank into the chair across from her mother and let her bag slide to the floor. The check they gave her was still folded in the back pocket of her jeans. Blood money. She stared at the wall where a faded photo of her younger brother Marcus still hung. He'd been in the Navy